Let's go back to main activity and take a look at what was created for us, because this is slightly different than what's currently created by Eclipse. Now, again, these two IDEs may evolve closer together even in terms of the default implementations and what's included. But as of right now, this is a little bit different than what you'll see in an Eclipse project. So if you're working through a Treehouse project, let's say the Build a Simple Crystal Ball app, which is done in Eclipse. If you wanted to try it in Android Studio, you just have to make a few modifications compared to what's taught in that class to get it to work properly on Android Studio. So as of right now, you can see it extends action bar activity, which is to bring in the action bar for older versions. And onCreate is basically the same. And then we have this block here, which has to do with the fragments. So essentially what this does is attaches the fragment to the activity. And it's just, like I said, it's one fragment that fills the entire screen. It uses this fragment manager. It attaches it to the container, which I'll show you here in a second. And it creates a placeholder fragment, which is actually defined down below. You can see this is an internal class. We'll get rid of this in just a second, just to make things look more like Eclipse. But before we do, let's just take a quick look at the layouts and see how this fragment gets plugged in. So if we open up the activity layout, we see that all it has is this frame layout. It's just a rectangle. It doesn't have anything inside of it. There's no text view. There's no button. It's just a holder for fragments. So then the fragment layout itself, this has all of the typical layout elements that we're used to. This has a relative layout. And within that, we have a text view, and we can add additional controls. This text view just says, hello world. So going back to the main activity Java file, there's a few methods here about the options menu that is in the action bar. And then, again, here at the bottom, we have the placeholder fragment. So the fragments have a life cycle a lot like an activity. And we just looked at the onCreate method for an activity. And the fragment has, they have an onCreate method, but they also have this onCreate view when the view is attached to the activity. So this is where you would add code for anything related to the view. So if you're working through the Crystal Ball app or any of our other apps that, and you want to use the fragments with this implementation, then you would need to move some of the code that has to do with layout elements from onCreate into this onCreate view, because they're not available until this onCreate view is called. But let's get rid of it so that we can make this more like the project that we've been working on up until this point. So we'll actually get rid of the entire placeholder fragment class. Okay, we'll clean it up. Obviously, we get an error up here, but we're going to get rid of this whole if statement. And now we have a regular activity with a regular onCreate method. But we still need to update the layouts because it's trying to, the activity layout doesn't have anything. So all we need to do is copy everything from the fragment, because it's a relative layout that fills the screen, and paste it here into the main activity. And if I save these changes, now you can see that the display is updated and it shows the layout that was in the fragment now as the actual activity layout. Okay, so while we're in here with the layout, I'm not going to run this at this point, but you can see the graphical preview is pretty nice as we add elements. Let's do that. Let's add a button. Come over here, and you can see there's a palette that has all these different controls, which is, again, similar to what we see in Eclipse or IntelliJ. And if we pull the button on and switch back to the preview, where'd my preview go? Well, what I want to show you is here, you can preview it on different devices, but if you go down to the bottom and say Preview All Screens, you get a nice look at how this activity is going to look in different views on different screens. So this is just useful to make, if you're making changes to your layout and you want to see how it looks in landscape view or on tablets, etc. You can kind of take a quick look. Of course, you want to run it on each of those devices or emulators to make sure that it's working as you expect it to. But this is a nice way to make some edits, while you're working on the layout and make sure that you're not doing anything crazy. It's going to blow up a different layout.